So today I'm going to do another recipe out of one of my favorite cookbooks that I've been using all week. The Ki1ng Arthur whole grain baking. I've been using this a lot to make breads. But today I'm going to do a different recipe and I'm going to make cranberry orange spelt muffins. So I know that this recipe calls for, let's see if I can find it, spelt flour. But instead of spelt flour, whole spelt flour, I'm going to use just whole grain flour because I don't have any spelt flour on hand. And instead of the 2 large eggs it calls for, I'm going to use an egg replacer. And I don't have any pecans, so my recipe is not going to have pecans. And I believe that's the only changes that I'm going to make. Place cranberries in a small heat-proof bowl. Heat the orange juice in a microwave on high power for 30 seconds and pour it over the cranberries. Cover the bowl and set aside to cool. So it says you want to do this the night before you bake, but it's the morning of I'm baking, so I'm just going to do it and let it sit for a little bit. And then I'll do that step, and then it wants me to whisk together the flours, baking powder, salt in a large mixing bowl. So I'll do that step, and then I will do the first step and the second step, and I'll come back and show you. So the first step was to heat the half a cup of orange juice for 30 seconds in the microwave, and they want you to stir in the cranberries and let them soak, I guess. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll stir in the cranberries, coat them all in the juice, and I guess let them soak. Because these are dried cranberries, so I guess they want you to rehydrate them a bit. Okay, so in this bowl I have the 1 1/4 cup of whole wheat flour. I have a cup of all-purpose flour. I have a tablespoon of baking powder and half a teaspoon of salt. So that was the second step. Now I'm going on to the third step. So in my baking book, the recipe says, so we whisk together the flours, and it wants us to, in a separate bowl, mix together the milk, the honey, the eggs, the oil. So instead of egg replacer, instead of eggs, we're going to use an egg replacer. And instead of regular milk, I'm going to use almond milk. And some vegans use honey, some don't. Since I'm making this for my family, I'm still going to use the honey. So I'm going to do that step, and then I'll come back. Before I go over the next step, I want to take the time to talk about my flax egg. So my flax egg is ground flax seeds. So the recipe calls for 2 eggs. So to replace the 2 eggs, I use 2 tablespoons of flaxseed and 6 tablespoons of water. So for every one egg replacer, so 1 tablespoon of flaxseed, ground flaxseed, you would need 3 tablespoons of water. So it's 1 to 3. Okay, so that's my flax egg. If you didn't want to use flaxseed, again, like I've mentioned in previous videos, you can use banana, you can use applesauce, you can use chia, you can use Bob's Red Mill makes an egg replacer, just egg, and there's powdered eggs that are vegan that you can use. So there's many options, but today we are using ground flaxseed. So I decided to go with the honey that's in the recipe, But instead of honey, you could use agave syrup. You could use, you can use a little bit of extra sugar and just melt it down with a little bit of warm hot water, or warmer like hot water, and it'll melt it down into a little syrupy. And then you could also use maple syrup. That all adds sweetness when in baking instead of using honey, because I know some vegans don't use honey. But again, I'm making this for my family, and they still use honey, so I'm going to use it in this recipe. So I have the wet ingredients all mixed together, which was the 1 tablespoon of sunflower or vegetable oil. I used sunflower oil. It was 3/4 a cup of milk. I used almond milk. My 2 eggs, which was my egg replacer, and my 1/4 a cup of honey. Now, you could, like I said, could use any other sweetener you'd like, but I used honey. And in this bowl, I have my flours, baking powder, and salt. I'm going to move on to our next step. So after you add the ingredient in a separate bowl, you want to add the dry ingredients, stirring just until you see no more dry clumps of flour. So you want to add the dry into the wet until it's well incorporated. So this is the batter after I mixed it all together and incorporated all the flour. I accidentally added the wet to the dry, but the recipe wants you to add the dry to the wet. But it came out fine either way, so. Also, I don't think that I mentioned how much orange zest you would need, so let me check the recipe and show you how much orange zest you're going to need. So, 1 tablespoon of orange zest is what you're going to need. So I just take my cheese grater and I just run the rind of the orange up and down until you see the white part. And once you see the white part, you move the orange and you do a different side, and you keep doing that until you see all white around the orange. You don't want to zest the white part of the orange, just the orange part. Okay, so I'm going to add the orange zest, like I said, mix in my cranberries, and put it in the refrigerator, and I will be back. I just want to show you that before I put it in the refrigerator to rest for 2 hours, that since I've added the cranberries and the orange zest and the juice that was with the cranberries, it's gotten a lot looser. The batter is not as thick as it was before, and it looks a lot better, and I think this is how it's supposed to look. So I'm just going to cover it with plastic wrap and put it into the refrigerator. The batter has been sitting in the refrigerator for about an hour and a half. So I have half an hour left. So I'm going to make my streusel topping, which is 3 tablespoons of butter, brown sugar, but instead of brown sugar, I'm going to use granulated sugar, oat flour, all-purpose flour, and no chopped pecans. I made my streusel, and that's going to go on top of my muffins. My oven to 400 degrees according to the recipe. I'm going to fill my muffin tin with the batter and top it with the streusel. So this is the muffin. I cut into it, and it looks good. I tasted a little, and it's delicious. These are the muffins that came out of the oven after 25 minutes. A little bit of spillage over, and it burned a little bit over there. But other than that, I think they came out pretty good. If you like this recipe and you want more recipes, I'll be posting more within the coming days. So stay tuned and like and subscribe to my channel. And Have a great rest of your day.